What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video for round 4 of the Rugby World Cup 2023. Unfortunately, in work this week, I am extremely busy. Obviously, YouTube's not my full-time job. I have a full-time job outside of it. So unfortunately, this week, in terms of the preview videos, it's going to be a lot more choppy. I'm just going to sort of cover the teams as and when I find the time. So we won't be able to cover every game, unfortunately. Hopefully it all calms down a little bit before we get into that final round of the pool stages in round 5. This one is going to be for New Zealand versus Italy. One of the bigger games on this weekend. There's a lot of interesting games happening this weekend. A lot of the games do feel like one team's going to get a bit of a tri-fest over the other team. This might be one that ends up being a bit more exciting, even though I think New Zealand are definitely going in as heavy favourites into this one. Not the first game of the round. Obviously, we've got Uruguay versus Namibia on today. It's actually happening today by the time filming this. And then we also have Japan versus Samoa is on tomorrow before this one as well. If I have time this evening, maybe I'll do one for the Japan-Samoa, but I very much doubt with my limited time I'll get one done for the Uruguay game, unfortunately. So as we do in the preview videos, we're going to have a run through of the teams that have been announced for both sides, give some thoughts on the teams, how we think the game's going to go, and of course give a score prediction. Let me know what you think of the teams down in the comments section, and make sure if you enjoyed the video, you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because I do enjoy talking about rugby when I have time. Feels like this week is going very fast. So round 4 then, New Zealand versus Italy. I've had a quick look. New Zealand are being classed as the home side for this one, so we'll start out by talking about New Zealand. Now, we didn't get to see them play last week. They had their bye week last week. The week before, they had that very narrow victory over Namibia, 71-3, where it felt like basically everyone in the team was scoring a try. Anton Linnett-Brown got 2, Damien McKenzie got 2, Caleb Clark got 1, Fainga Nuku got 2. Like, basically everyone in that back line was just scoring tries for fun, unfortunately, over Namibia. Not necessarily the most exciting game to watch if you're a neutral, if you're an All Black supporter. Hey, you get to watch a very exciting tri-fest game. Going into this one then, they've had a week off. They have reloaded the team, and the team is back up to some big old units. Now, one name missing out, of course. Ethan de Groot got his red card. He'll have his suspensions as well for this one. So no Ethan de Groot. There's one name missing off, but the return of some big names in this New Zealand team. So starting out in this front row, Ofa Tuanga goes in that loose head prop. Cody Taylor in hooker, and Napu Laulala in the tight head position. So maybe not your arguable first choice front row you'd want for New Zealand. Italy get involved in the scrum. They enjoy a bit of a physical game. The driving maul, I feel, is a better weapon for Italy than the scrum. Sometimes I feel like a lot of teams want to compete against Italy at the scrum, but the driving maul is one that sometimes they can really cause you a bit of a nuisance with. So these forwards will have probably a long old day of some physical battles. In the lock department, Brodie Retallick goes in alongside of Scott Barrett. Some people might be thinking of Sam Whitelock. He's been moved to the bench for this one. Of course, Scott Barrett can also move to that flanker, so we'll see how that switches up later on. But no room in the flanker position this week because the return of Shannon Frizzell, a name that I've been waiting to see in this World Cup squad, was doing so well through the Rugby Championship, and I was really saying throughout the Rugby Championship leading up to this World Cup how he has cemented that number 6 position for me, absolutely playing out of his skin. Really big player to watch this weekend. Alongside him in the back row, Dalton Papali'i and Ardie Savea in as captain. Sam Cane returning now, but starting on the bench for this one. So Ardie Savea as captain once again in that number 8 shirt. So a big old forward pack for New Zealand. Although they sort of dominated Namibia. Namibia really haven't performed particularly well at this World Cup. Italy are going to be a bit more of a challenge in terms of the physical battle. In terms of the breakdown is one area that Italy have been really working on. The speed of the ruck and getting their own ball out. That'll be a big area for New Zealand to impact, because when Italy are allowed to get on the front foot and you just sort of let them get on with their game, they can be very dangerous. They are scoring tries. They are actually putting big scores on some other teams. They had that big comeback versus Uruguay last week where I really thought they were out of it, and they just absolutely trounced them by the end of it. So slowing down the Italian ruck speed is going to be one of the biggest impacts, I think. And they've got some good names in here, to be fair. Scott Barrett, Shannon Frizzell, Papali'i, Ardie Savea, those lads I can see wanting to get massively involved in that breakdown. Try and slow it down, slow down the speed that Italy can get the ball out to the wingers that are so dangerous. If they get stuck in the forwards, I really think that New Zealand can really just hold this one out and then launch their own backs later on. Italy really feel like they need the backs to be involved to score those big tries, those big open play runs. So as long as you can retain that ball and lock them down in the rucking area, could be some big issues for them. In the halfback partnership, Aaron Smith goes in alongside of Richie Mo'unga, so the main partnership this week. Cam Roigard and Damien McKenzie are having a bit of a tri-fest versus Namibia, so they'll be going on in the second half from the bench. Maybe that explosive attacking style that we see from both them. Aaron Smith and Richie Mo'unga starting them out. Professional heads, experienced heads. They know what they're doing. They'll organise the game. I can imagine them taking a couple of 3 points in that first half, and then if the scoreboard begins to impact, that's where you'll see them move more out to maybe going for the corners and stuff. But I can see Richie Mo'unga getting a couple of early penalties in here. In the centre partnership then, the return of some big units. Geordie Barrett back in on inside centre, and Rico Ioane goes in outside centre. Geordie Barrett coming back in after his injury, but out for a good while. Thought maybe he would have got back in for the France game. I don't think his injury quite recovered by them. He was left out last week, who again, I was like, maybe get in. They went for Havili and Anton Linnett-Brown. So this week is his returning week. Will he play the full game? You would want to think so. I would want him to be in there. Anton Linnett-Brown is on the bench if you need him to come on, and I imagine that's the position he would actually come on for. Would just be to make sure Geordie Barrett's okay, because after this game, they've got one game left, and you go on towards the quarterfinals. If they beat Italy, which at the minute I feel like they probably have the better opportunity to. But of course, you don't want those big injuries to those players that have just got over an injury. Of course, always a bit more susceptible to new ones. And then finally, in the back three, Mark Talea goes in alongside of Will Jordan and Beauden Barrett, who's been doing very well at fullback, actually. I've really been enjoying the way Beauden Barrett is playing fullback, the way he just carries the ball up to the line, constantly slots in the attacking line just to be an extra player. And makes it seem very seamless. It doesn't feel like he's forcing his way in, just gets there. Occasionally, sometimes I think is a little bit too close to another player where I'm sort of thinking, I don't quite understand. Last time we saw them out with Fainga Nuku, there was a couple of times Beauden Barrett was stood about 2 feet away from him. I don't know what you're offering by being there compared to him. I think just maintain your own space. Maybe you can offer yourself as a slightly different running line when you're going on the attack. But in terms of his backfield coverage, I think he's been doing very well. And then, of course, Mark Talea and Will Jordan. There's some try scoring if you ever wanted to see it. Now, New Zealand don't always use their wingers to go for the tries either. They're breakaway players. They've got immense amount of speed. The counter-attack is devastating. But they don't always use them. We saw Will Jordan a lot throughout the Rugby Championship being used as like a second receiver almost, being brought around from his wing, playing up towards the centre to be used as a second distributor. So, maybe they'll play him that way. I can see this game, if it goes more expansive, though, Talea and Will Jordan could be some big try scorers in this one. Quickly then, in terms of the substitutions, Dane Coles, Tamaiti Williams and Tyrell Lomax going on in that second half. Looking forward to see a bit more of Tamaiti Williams. Still a young lad, low on caps, big old unit. Get him on and get him involved in the scrum. Rest of the placement forwards alongside them, Sam Whitelock and Sam Kane. Some big caps coming on there in that second half. And then in the replacement backs, Cam Roigard, Damien McKenzie and Anton Linnett-Brown. So, a nice smattering there of high experienced, low experienced. You've got some old heads that are going to just bring, a bit of leadership if the game's not going your way. If it is going your way, you chuck on Cam Roigard and Damien McKenzie and you just let them go to town and probably open up some more scoring opportunity. So a really nice team overall, considering they've had that issue with Ethan de Groot and his red card. The return of some big players for them. I can see them being kind of confident going into this one. Moving on to Italy then, who last week played Uruguay and struggled for a lot of it. I think Uruguay caught them off guard a lot. They had that halftime team talk. They came out and looked like a completely different team. The second half for them so much better, and you just want to see that performance for the full 80 because they looked like a proper team in that second half. It looked like it was working well. Everyone knew what they were meant to be doing. The passing was better. The set piece was better. They just need to do that for the full 80 because you can come back against Uruguay. I don't think you come back against New Zealand. If you lose that first half quite as badly, New Zealand will put a lot more on the scoreboard, and it takes a lot more to recover. In terms of the Italian team, then not a lot of changes to talk about in the forwards. Fischetti, Nicotera, and Riccioni, still the same front row that we got to see last week up against Uruguay. Fischetti last week had a couple of penalties going against him, just for silly penalties, just giving up territory, and that field position is so important against a team like New Zealand. Whereas Uruguay might be more leaning towards going for the corner as opposed to kicking it post, although they did get a drop goal last week. I feel like New Zealand won't bother with that. They'll just take 3, and they've got so many solid kickers, they will score 3. You can't afford to be giving up, easy penalties that don't need to happen. In the lock department, Dino Lamb comes back in alongside Federico Ruzza, of course. Canone last week got his yellow card for quite a cynical collapsing of the maul, right, or not rolling, was out the back of the ruck. So Dino Lamb back in with his shot in the number 4 shirt, and to be fair, he's been impressing me more. Didn't think I'd be saying that because Canone, both of them, actually involved in that Six Nations, very impressive. Dino Lamb is stepping up. And Italy have got a nice lock department. To be fair, I rate Federico Ruzza very highly, and Dino Lamb is really beginning to move up that marker for me. I am looking forward to see this team go up against some pretty big giants in terms of that New Zealand line-out. And then in the back row, Sebastian Negri, Lamaro, and Canone in that number 8 should, of course, getting his try last week, or questionable try. Actually, I was convinced it was a try until we got to see it in the slow-mo replay. It looked a little bit like he dropped it, but I had him in my fantasy team. So you know what? I'll say it was a try all day long. But of course, a great back row for them. Some very, very talented players now. Lamaro as a captain, working very, very hard with this Italian team, talking to the referee constantly, wanting to try and inspire leadership, and I think does it very well. The bounce back they had showed a great deal of resiliency, because I could see a lot of teams feeling very dejected after that first half versus Uruguay. Bouncing back, scoring well, those are the sort of people you need just to make sure you're leading the team, pushing them on, and turn that game around. In the halfback partnership, mixing it up again from last week, Stephen Varney and Paolo Garbisi go back in at the halfback partnership. This is what we've got to see earlier on in the tournament. They tried something a bit different last week with Tommy Allen playing 10 and Garbisi playing 12. Garbisi played well at 12, to be fair, last week, but I kind of preferred this because Capozzo in that 15 shirt. I'll get onto that in a second, but I'm not fully convinced by that. In the centre partnership, Morisi comes back in alongside Brex, of course, with Garbisi moving back to 10. Morisi coming in that inside centre. Again, another player that I'm looking forward to see how he can get on, because the centre partnership for New Zealand's pretty beefy. Hopefully he gets some nice inroads, because Morisi, once he gets through that sort of line, he can get away. He can get away from you. We'll see how the defence works out for them. And then finally, in the back three, Montiuani retains the left wing. Capozzo moves back to the right wing. And Tommaso Alan moves to the fullback shoe, where we've got to see him at the start of the tournament. Now, Capozzo last week, I'm going to go for some hot takes here. Now, I've been paying a bit more attention to him recently because, of course, we've had the fantasy going on. You're looking at more things. When you look at Capozzo's stats as standalone, what's he up to? Well, he's making a load of meters. He's scoring tries. He's doing all these good things. The stats back him actually is doing incredibly well and playing well. Paying more attention, though, to the fantasy, where you're looking for try assists and maybe looking at how is he working within the team. Last week, we're seeing him at fullback. There were a lot of times where I feel like there was an element of selfish play coming in for him that actually was a negative to the team. I would say there was 3 or 4 potential try scoring opportunities where there was a 2-on-1 overlap, a 3-on-2 overlap, and he just refuses to give that pass to another player. And it comes across a little bit like he's so desperate to get his own hands on the ball and run over for a try, backs himself, backs his own speed, that sometimes it actually comes as a bit of a negative to the rest of the team, where I was screaming at him last week to give the ball to Ioane on a 2-on-1, and instead he kicked the ball on, and the fullback just got back and recovered for it, or he was waiting on someone else's shoulder for the offload pass that didn't come, got a turnover, and then there's no one in the backfield, and Uruguay were kicking them back, finding grass, because Capozzo wasn't in the backfield because he's so busy looking for the ball up front. I think sometimes he's so desperate to be the talisman try scorer that sometimes it kind of ruins Italy's own attack and defence. So something to keep an eye out for him, because to be honest, Pani on that right wing has also been playing quite well, and has been sort of taken off that wing now, because Capozzo, I think, is always going to be in this team. I think I kind of prefer seeing Capozzo on the wing as opposed to at fullback, because I think fullback's such a position you need to be alert to the game and aware and backing up your own team, as opposed to maybe being out on the wing where you can just wait for the ball and you can hunt for the ball and go for the tries. I'm actually beginning to prefer him out on the wing now as just there rather than seeing him in that full-back position. But that's going to be my hot take for this Italian team. I'm sure a lot of people will probably disagree with me down in the comment section. And then quickly then, in terms of the subs, because this video is running on a little bit now, Fiver, Nema and Ferrari will be coming on in that second half, so switching it up a little bit from the team we got to see last week. Rest of the replacement forwards, Nicolo Canone, Zuliani and Halafihi will be coming on in that second half. So the 6-2 split for Italy. They're obviously expecting a forwards-based game again. Maybe good in terms of their own longevity, in terms of defending against New Zealand. But I really don't think they want to be sticking this one with the forwards, because I think one of the best ways this Italian team is going to be able to get on the charge is to release those wingers, and maybe just going through the forwards is an area that New Zealand might feel confident in just shutting down. And then in the replacement backs, Pajorello will be coming on at some point in that second half alongside of Paolo Dogwu, who can come on basically everywhere from what I've been understanding. He's just a big old man. You can chuck him on at centre, you can chuck him at wing, low centre of gravity for he's a big lad. He's not necessarily the tallest, but he seems like a hard lad to stop. Looking forward to maybe seeing him get a bit of game time, actually. I imagine, looking at the team and the way they've organised, the idea is he'll come on at centre. Just from the layout of that team, I can't see them wanting to take Ioane or Capuozzo off. So I imagine he's coming on at centre. I'm looking forward to see how he gets on. Maybe against the second half, a bit more of a fatigued New Zealand team, because he seems like a hard man to stop. Maybe he will make a couple of inroads. But in terms of this game, I really see New Zealand taking this one. Over the course of the World Cup, I haven't been necessarily that impressed by Italy. They've got some decent scores under their belts. They're getting over for tries, but they feel very sort of like they need to be playing their way. They need to be in control. And when they take over and they have control of the game, they're organising their own attack. They're going through a bit more of the formulaic attack. They're playing very well. As soon as the game breaks up and they're not in control, it really feels like they get put on the back foot, and Uruguay did it so well against them last week. New Zealand are, again, another big control team, and they like being in control of the game, controlling the speed of it. We saw it, against like France and other teams where they took really long at the line-outs, they took really long at the scrums, really slowed down that tempo, and then out of nowhere, bang, in comes Rieko Ioane playing at high speed, catching defence off guard. I can see New Zealand taking this one actually kind of comfortably, considering how well Italy did in the Six Nations in terms of keeping the likes of France and Ireland quite close on terms of the scoreboard. I've got a feeling New Zealand are actually going to do a little bit better in this one. So in terms of a score prediction, I'm going to say New Zealand. And I'm going to say New Zealand. I'm going to say 25. I feel confident in this New Zealand team, backed up by some new players coming back in from injury, feeling a bit more like a full-strength team. I can see them wanting just to run over and get a good chunk of points for this game. Of course, it is also a bit of a competition now for third or second place in the pool. It's a big game for both teams. I don't think New Zealand are going to be messing around on this one. They'll come in kind of confident for this one. But hey, that's my score prediction, guys. What do I know about rugby? Make sure you drop down your own score predictions and your thoughts on the teams in the comment section, because I do enjoy having a read through them. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.